I'm Sarah Ellis, a 38-year-old marketing manager who's spent years carving out a life in Atlanta's fast-paced advertising world. My job's demanding, but it's mine, built on late nights, big pitches, and a stubborn refusal to let anyone tell me I can't. My mother raised me alone in a small Georgia town, pouring her heart into every sacrifice so I could chase my dreams. Her strength, and my grandmother's before her, lives in the jewelry I've cherished. A sapphire pendant from Mom's nursing school graduation, a diamond bracelet Grandma wore when she married, a gold ring I bought myself after landing my first major client. Those pieces aren't just shiny trinkets, they're my history, my proof that I come from fighters. I'd been away in Chicago, pitching to a big client, when I walked back into our Atlanta loft, suitcase still in hand. The city's humid air clung to me, but the real weight hit when I saw David, my husband of 10 years, lounging on our leather couch with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Sarah, you're back," he said, his voice too smooth, like he was selling me something. I set my bag down, unease prickling my skin. David's a tech entrepreneur, always chasing the next big idea, but that smirk? It wasn't ambition, it was something darker. "What's with the grin?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light despite the alarm bells ringing in my head. He waved a hand, casual as ever, but his eyes gleamed with a secret he couldn't wait to spill. "Oh, nothing major," he said, leaning back. "Just made a bold move while you were gone. A game changer for us." My stomach twisted. David's bold moves usually meant reckless gambles, late nights at his startup, promises of an empire that never materialized. What kind of move? I pressed, crossing my arms. He stood, pacing like a showman, then turned to me, his grin widening. "Your jewelry collection," he said, voice dripping with pride. "I sold it. Every piece. And before you flip out, hear me out, you'll thank me later. Those gems? They funded my empire." The room spun. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. My jewelry, my mother's pendant, my grandmother's bracelet, my ring gone. "What did you just say?" I whispered, my voice shaking. He laughed, misreading my shock for awe. "I said I sold it, Sarah. Those diamonds? Worth a fortune. Enough to kickstart my app into the big leagues. You should be proud." "Proud?" My hands curled into fists, nails biting into my palms. "You had no right, David," I said, my voice low but trembling with rage. "That was my jewelry. Do you even know what you've done?" He rolled his eyes, like I was overreacting. "Come on, Sarah, you barely wore it. It was just sitting in that box, collecting dust. Now it's actually doing something, building our future." Our future? No, this was his future, his obsession. I'd spent years supporting his dreams, cheering him on, even when his charm hid a selfishness that chipped away at me. But this? This was theft, not just of my jewelry, but of my past, my heart. I wanted to scream, to tear into him right there, but something stopped me. A flicker of clarity cut through the anger. David thought he'd won, thought I was too stunned to fight back. But he didn't know everything. Months ago, after hearing about a string of thefts in our midtown neighborhood, I'd taken precautions. My most valuable pieces had tiny tracking devices hidden in their clasps, a secret I hadn't even shared with him. As I stood there, staring at his smug face, I realized I wasn't as powerless as he thought. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That night, I sat alone in our bedroom, the Atlanta skyline glowing faintly through the window. The drawer where my jewelry box once sat was empty, a gaping hole that mirrored the one in my chest. I could still see each piece in my mind. The sapphire pendant my mom gave me when I graduated college, her eyes shining with pride. The diamond bracelet Grandma wore on her wedding day, passed down to me with stories of her resilience. The gold ring I'd bought with my first big commission, a symbol of my own grit. Those weren't just things, they were anchors, tying me to the women who raised me, to the life I'd fought for. And David had sold them like they were nothing, all to chase his startup fantasy. I'd always admired David's drive when we met in our late 20s. He was charismatic, a dreamer who could talk anyone into believing his next idea was the one. I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, thinking we were building a life together. But over the years, I saw the cracks, how he'd steamroll anyone, even me, to get what he wanted. Late nights became investor meetings, and my savings dwindled for his sure things. I'd let it slide, convincing myself love meant compromise. But this? Selling my jewelry without a word? It was a betrayal so deep it cut through every excuse I'd ever made for him. My fingers hovered over my phone, itching to call him out, to scream until he felt the weight of what he'd done. But rage wouldn't get my jewelry back. Instead, I opened the tracking app I'd installed months ago after a neighbor's house was burgled. The screen lit up, red dots blinking across Atlanta, my necklace at a pawn shop in Buckhead, my bracelet at a warehouse near the airport. Timestamps showed their paths, proof of David's theft. My heart raced, not with anger now, but with a grim satisfaction. He thought he'd played me, but I had evidence he couldn't charm away. I dialed Lila, my best friend since our college days at Emory. She answered on the first ring, her voice warm but wary. "Sarah, what's wrong?" I spilled everything. David smirk, the sold jewelry, the trackers. By the time I finished, she was livid. "He did what?" "Sarah, you need to go to the police. Now." Her words steadied me, like a hand pulling me from quicksand. "I will," I said, feeling a spark of resolve. "First thing tomorrow." As I hung up, staring at those glowing dots, I knew this wasn't just about getting my jewelry back. It was about taking back my life. The next morning, I walked into the Atlanta PD precinct on Peachtree Street, my phone clutched like a lifeline. The air smelled of coffee and bureaucracy, but my nerves were electric, humming with a mix of fear and determination. I'd never filed a police report before, but Lila's voice rang in my head. "You need to go to the police." She was right. If I let David skate on this, he'd keep pushing, taking more than just my jewelry next time. At the front desk, a detective with kind eyes and a name tag reading Maria Torres greeted me. "How can I help you?" she asked, her tone calm but attentive. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I need to report a theft," I said. "My jewelry collection, it was sold without my permission." Her eyebrows lifted slightly, but she nodded, motioning me to a desk. I poured out the story, David's smug confession, the sentimental value of the pieces, the tracking devices I'd installed. When I showed her the app, with its blinking dots mapping my jewelry across Atlanta, her expression sharpened. "This is solid evidence," she said, scribbling notes. "Do you have a list of what was taken?" I handed her a notebook I'd prepared, listing every piece, the sapphire pendant, the diamond bracelet, the gold ring, their estimated values, their stories. It felt like handing over pieces of my soul, but Detective Torres's focus grounded me. "If these trackers are active, we can likely recover some items," she said. "But since your husband sold them without consent, this could be fraud. Are you ready to press charges?" The question hit hard. Charging David meant tearing apart our marriage, our shared life. But then I thought of his smirk, his casual dismissal of my pain. "Yes," I said, my voice firm. "I want him held accountable." As I left the precinct, my emotions churned, relief that someone believed me, anger at David's betrayal, and a growing resolve to fight. For years, I'd bent his ambition, thinking it was love. But now, standing in the warm Atlanta sun, I felt something new, the strength to stand up for myself. David thought he'd outsmarted me, but he didn't know I'd already taken the first step to take back what was mine. Back at the loft, the adrenaline from the precinct faded, leaving me drained but restless. I sat on the couch, staring at the Atlanta skyline, its lights blurring through my tears. David's betrayal wasn't just about the jewelry, it was about trust, about the life I thought we'd built. I'd spent a decade believing in his dreams, even when they cost me my own. Now, I saw the truth, his ambition wasn't for us. It was for him, always him. I replayed our marriage in my mind, how his charm had won me over, how his promises of "we'll make it big" kept me tethered. But there were signs I'd ignored, the way he dismissed my ideas, the loans from my savings he never repaid, the way he'd turn every argument into my fault. I'd convinced myself it was partnership, but it was control. Selling my jewelry was just the final straw, a slap that woke me up. Lila came over that evening, a bottle of sweet tea vodka in hand, her teacher's practicality cutting through my haze. Okay, spill, she said, plopping onto the couch. I told her about the precinct, Detective Torres, the tracking data. Her eyes widened, then narrowed with fury. You're handling this like a badass, Sarah, she said, pouring us shots. I'd be burning his suits in the backyard by now. I laughed, the sound surprising me. Trust me, I've thought about it, I said. But the police have the evidence. I think this is my shot to get everything back. She raised her glass. To you, for not letting that jerk win. We clinked, and for a moment, I felt lighter. Lila had been my rock since college, always there when my world wobbled. Her own messy breakup years ago made her allergic to men like David, and her support now felt like armor. As we talked, I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for my jewelry. I was fighting for me, the Sarah who'd clawed her way up, who deserved better than David's lies. That night, as I lay in bed, the city humming outside, I knew the storm was coming. But for the first time, I was ready to face it. The next day, Detective Torres called, her voice steady but urgent. Sarah, we've confirmed the locations of 3 pieces, 2 at a Buckhead pawn shop, 1 at a warehouse near Hartsfield-Jackson. The owners are cooperating, and we're moving to recover them. Relief flooded me, but her next words chilled it. There's more. We've flagged unusual transactions in David's startup accounts. This might be bigger than the jewelry theft. My stomach dropped. Bigger how? I asked. Possible fraud, she said. We're digging deeper, but it could involve his investors. Stay cooperative, and we'll keep you updated. I hung up, my mind spinning. Fraud? David's startup was his obsession, a labyrinth of pitch decks and late-night calls. I'd never asked too many questions, trusting his charisma to make it work. Now, I wondered what else he'd hidden. That evening, he came home, tossing his keys on the counter with his usual swagger. Tough day, he muttered, then grinned. What's for dinner? His nonchalance ignited my anger. We need to talk, I said, crossing my arms. His grin faded. What now? You stole my jewelry, I said, my voice sharp. Sold it for your startup. And now the police are investigating you, not just for that, but your finances. His face paled, but he recovered fast, scoffing. Police? Sarah, you're blowing this out of proportion. That jewelry was just sitting there. I did us a favor. His audacity stunned me. A favor? I snapped. You had no right, David. And the police? They've got evidence. Trackers I put in the jewelry. His eyes widened, a crack in his confidence. You're making a mistake, he hissed. This'll ruin everything. No, I said, standing taller. You ruined it. And you can't talk your way out this time. He glared, then stormed out, the door slamming behind him. My heart pounded, but not with fear, with power. For years, I'd let David's charm excuse his selfishness. Now, with the police closing in and my evidence pinning him, I felt the balance shift. I wasn't his pawn anymore. I was the one calling the shots. David's slam of the door echoed in my ears, but I didn't flinch. For the first time, his tantrums didn't shake me. I stood in our loft, the Atlanta skyline glittering beyond the window, and felt a strange calm. The police were on my side, the trackers were working, and David's empire, built on my stolen jewelry, was crumbling. But Detective Torres's words about bigger problems haunted me. What else had David been hiding? His startup had always been a black box, a maze of promises and investor calls I'd never questioned. Now, I wondered if I'd ever really known him. I called Lila, pacing the hardwood floor. The police think David's into something shady, I said, my voice low. Fraud, maybe worse. Lila wasn't surprised. Girl, that man's ego's been writing checks his morals can't cash for years, she said. He's been hiding stuff, Sarah. You just didn't want to see it. Her words stung, but she was right. I'd ignored the red flags, his late-night meetings, the way he'd dodge questions about money. I'd married a dreamer, but somewhere along the line, he'd become a liar. That night, David came home late, his usual swagger replaced by a tense edge. You're destroying everything, he said, his voice low and venomous. The police, Sarah? Do you know what this'll do to my business? I met his glare, unflinching. You did this, David. You stole from me. And now they're finding more, your shady deals, your accounts. His jaw tightened, a flicker of fear in his eyes. You don't know what you're talking about, he snapped, but his voice wavered. This isn't over. It is for us, I said, my voice steady. You crossed a line, and I'm done letting you walk over me. He stared, his confidence fracturing, then turned and left without another word. As the door clicked shut, I exhaled, my heart racing but strong. This wasn't just about my jewelry anymore. It was about breaking free from a man who'd taken more than I'd ever realized. With every step I took, from the police to this moment, I was reclaiming the Sarah I'd lost. And I wasn't stopping now. The next morning, Detective Torres called with news that hit like a freight train. Sarah, we've recovered your sapphire pendant and diamond bracelet from the Buckhead pawn shop, she said. We're tracing the rest, but there's more. David's startup accounts show signs of money laundering funds from your jewelry mixed with suspicious transfers. The DA's building a case. My breath caught. Money laundering? I'd known David was reckless, but this was a whole new level of deceit. What does this mean for me? I asked, gripping the phone. You're not implicated, she assured me. But stay cooperative. This is serious. I hung up, my mind reeling. David hadn't just stolen my jewelry. He'd built his empire on lies, maybe even crimes. How had I missed this? I'd spent years cheering him on, ignoring the late-night calls, the vague excuses about investors. I'd told myself it was ambition, not greed. Now, I saw the stranger I'd married, a man who'd used me, my trust, my past, to fuel his schemes. That afternoon, I met Claire Nguyen, a lawyer Lila recommended. Her office in Midtown was sleek, all glass and steel, a stark contrast to the chaos in my head. I laid out everything, the jewelry, the trackers, the police investigation. Claire's sharp eyes scanned my notes. This is a mess, Sarah, she said, but you've got a strong case. The trackers are gold, proof of theft. And with the fraud? We need to file for divorce now to protect your finances. Divorce. The word felt like a guillotine, but also a lifeline. What about his business? I asked. Could it drag me down? Not if we act fast, she said. We'll secure your assets and establish clear separation. Leaving her office, I felt a mix of fear and relief. For years, I'd tied my life to David's dreams, thinking it was love. Now, I saw it for what it was: control. Filing for divorce wasn't just about ending a marriage, it was about choosing myself. As I stepped into the Atlanta heat, I knew the road ahead would be brutal, but for the first time, I felt ready to walk it. The paperwork from Claire sat on my kitchen table, a stack of promises for a new start. Divorce filings, asset protection forms, they were more than documents. They were my declaration of independence. Atlanta's skyline glowed outside, its lights steady against the dusk, mirroring the resolve growing inside me. David's betrayal had shattered something, but it also woke me up. I wasn't the naive woman who'd fallen for his charm a decade ago. I was Sarah Ellis, daughter of fighters, and I was done letting him define me. Lila called that evening, her voice a lifeline. How you holding up? She asked. I sighed, tracing the edge of a form. I'm okay. Scared, but in control. Claire's filing the divorce papers, and the police are closing in on David. Lila whistled. You're a force, Sarah. Most people would have crumbled. You're out here building a fortress. Her words warmed me. Lila had seen me through college breakups, career setbacks, and now this. Her faith in me felt like a mirror, reflecting the strength I was starting to see in myself. That night, David came home, his face a storm cloud. What's all this? He demanded, eyeing the papers. Divorce filings, I said, my voice even. His eyes widened, shock breaking through his usual swagger. You're serious? Sarah, you're throwing away everything we've built. I laughed, bitter but free. We? You built nothing for us, David. You stole from me, lied to me, and now your lies are catching up. This is the end. He scoffed, but his hands shook. You'll regret this, he said, voice low. You'll see. I regret trusting you, I shot back. But that's over. He stormed out, the door slamming, but this time, it didn't rattle me. Each step, the police, the lawyer, this moment, was a brick in the wall I was building around my life. David's empire was crumbling, but mine was just beginning. I sat back, the papers glowing under the kitchen light, and felt something I hadn't in years: hope. A week later, Detective Torres called with news that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Sarah, we've recovered most of your jewelry," she said. "The sapphire pendant, the diamond bracelet, the gold ring, they're at the precinct. One piece is still out there, but we're close." My heart leapt, tears pricking my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered, gripping the phone. "And David?" Her tone grew serious. "He's facing charges: fraud, theft, and money laundering. The DA's case is tight. He's not slipping out of this." I drove to the precinct, Atlanta's streets buzzing with morning traffic. Holding the sapphire pendant and diamond bracelet again was like reclaiming pieces of my soul. The pendant's cool weight brought back Mom's proud smile. The bracelet's sparkle echoed Grandma's stories. These weren't just things, they were my roots, my proof of survival. As I slipped the gold ring onto my finger, I felt whole again, like I'd stitched back a part of me David tried to rip away. But closure wasn't just about the jewelry. David's world was unraveling. The police had traced his shady deals, money funneled through his startup, fake investor accounts, even tax evasion. I'd loved a man I thought was driven, but he was just greedy, reckless. The betrayal still stung, but it didn't define me anymore. I'd spent years shrinking to fit his dreams, apologizing for my own. Now, with my jewelry in hand and the law closing in, I saw the truth. I was enough, always had been. That evening, Lila came over, her grin wide as she saw the recovered pieces. "Look at you, taking your life back," she said, hugging me. "You're unstoppable, Sarah." I smiled, the weight of her words settling in. The road wasn't over. Divorce papers, court dates, and one missing piece still loomed, but I wasn't afraid. Each step, from the trackers to the precinct, had built a new Sarah, one who fought for herself. And as Atlanta's skyline glowed outside, I knew I was ready for whatever came next. The day David was served divorce papers, I sat at my kitchen table, sipping coffee, the Atlanta skyline steady outside. Claire called to confirm, "He's been served, Sarah. Your finances are protected, and the case is moving forward." Relief washed over me, mingling with a quiet triumph. Detective Torres followed up later, her voice warm. "We've got all but one piece of your jewelry back," she said. "And David? He's facing multiple counts: fraud, theft, laundering. The evidence is airtight." I thanked her, my voice steady, but inside, I felt a shift. The anger that once consumed me was gone, replaced by clarity. David sent a text that afternoon, his tone bitter. "You had to ruin everything, didn't you?" I didn't reply. There was no point. His choices had built his prison, not mine. Holding my grandmother's bracelet, I traced its diamonds, remembering her stories of resilience. The sapphire pendant, Mom's gift, hung around my neck, a reminder of her sacrifices. These pieces weren't just jewelry, they were my strength, my proof that I could rebuild. That night, I met Lila for dinner at a cozy spot in Midtown. She raised her glass, eyes sparkling. "To Sarah Ellis, the woman who didn't just survive, she thrived." I laughed, clinking my glass against hers. "Not thriving yet," I said, "but getting there." Lila leaned in. "You're stronger than you know. You took on David, the police, the whole mess, and you won." Her words sank in, grounding me. For years, I'd let David's ambition eclipse my own worth. Now, I saw a future wide open, mine to shape. As I drove home, Atlanta's lights stretched before me, a city of possibilities. The divorce wasn't final, and one piece of jewelry was still out there, but I wasn't scared. I'd faced betrayal, fought for justice, and come out stronger. My home, once a battleground, was now my sanctuary. I was Sarah Ellis, daughter, fighter, survivor, and my story was just beginning. To everyone who's followed my journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, battles, and breakthroughs. If my story moved you, hit that subscribe button and join me here, where every piece of jewelry tells a tale of loss, fight, and freedom. Keep chasing your own truth, and I'll meet you at the table.